The Peloponnesian War was one of the most important and destructive conflicts in the history of ancient Greece. It was fought between two great power blocks, the Athenian-led Delian League and the Spartan-led Peloponnesian League. The war lasted from 431 to 404 BC and was essentially a struggle for dominance over the Greek world. Athens was the great naval empire of the Aegean, rich, democratic, and supported by tribute from its allies. Sparta, on the other hand, was the strongest land power in Greece, conservative, militarized, and supported by many Peloponnesian states. What began as a rivalry between two different political and military systems eventually became a brutal war that reshaped the entire Greek world. Before the war, Athens had risen to extraordinary power after the Greco-Persian Wars. It had originally led the Delian League as a defensive alliance against Persia, but over time, this alliance became an Athenian empire. Many former allies became tribute-paying subjects, and Athens used their money to build a powerful navy, strengthen its city, and fund impressive public works. This growing power alarmed Sparta and its allies. Sparta feared that Athens was becoming too dominant, while many smaller Greek states resented Athenian control. According to Thucydides, the deeper cause of the war was the growth of Athenian power and the fear this created in Sparta. The peace between Athens and Sparta had already been fragile for decades. Earlier conflicts, disputes over allies, and rival alliances had created deep mistrust. The 30 Years' Peace, signed in 446 or 445 BC, was meant to prevent another major war by recognizing the separate alliance systems of Athens and Sparta. However, tensions continued to rise. Corinth, a powerful ally of Sparta, became especially hostile toward Athens after disputes involving Corcyra and Potidaea. Athens also imposed trade restrictions on Megara, another Spartan ally, which further increased anger within the Peloponnesian League. In 432 BC, Sparta and its allies debated whether Athens had broken the peace. The Spartan assembly finally decided that Athens had violated the agreement, and war became unavoidable. The first major phase of the war is known as the Archidamian War, named after the Spartan king Archidamus II. It began in 431 BC when Spartan forces invaded Attica, the territory surrounding Athens. Sparta's strategy was simple: invade Athenian land, destroy farms, and force the Athenians to come out and fight a land battle. But the Athenian leader Pericles refused to give Sparta the kind of battle it wanted. He knew that Spartan hoplites were superior on land, so he ordered the people of Attica to move behind the long walls, the defensive walls connecting Athens to its port of Piraeus. As long as Athens controlled the sea, it could bring in supplies and continue the war. This strategy protected Athens from direct conquest, but it came at a terrible cost. Crowding inside the city created dangerous conditions, and in 430 BC a devastating plague struck Athens. The disease killed thousands of citizens, soldiers, and sailors, including Pericles himself. The plague weakened Athens both physically and psychologically. With Pericles gone, Athenian politics became more aggressive and unstable. Leaders such as Cleon pushed for a more offensive strategy, and Athens began launching raids and campaigns across the Greek world. Despite the plague, Athens achieved some important successes. One of the most dramatic came at Pylos and Sphacteria in 425 BC. The Athenian general Demosthenes fortified a position near Pylos, threatening Spartan territory and encouraging Helots, the enslaved population of Sparta, to flee. When Spartan forces tried to respond, a group of Spartan hoplites became trapped on the nearby island of Sphacteria. The Athenians eventually captured them, shocking the Greek world. Spartan soldiers were famous for never surrendering, so their capture damaged Sparta's reputation for invincibility. However, Sparta also found ways to strike back. The Spartan general Brasidas led a bold campaign into northern Greece and captured Amphipolis, an important Athenian possession in Thrace. Amphipolis was valuable because of its access to timber and silver resources, which supported Athenian naval power. During an Athenian attempt to recover the city, both Brasidas and Cleon were killed. With the most aggressive war leaders on both sides gone, Athens and Sparta agreed to a truce known as the Peace of Nicias in 421 BC. The Peace of Nicias was supposed to last 50 years, but in reality, it was fragile from the beginning. Many allies on both sides were dissatisfied. Sparta struggled to control its Peloponnesian allies, while Athens continued to interfere in Greek politics. Argos, a rival of Sparta in the Peloponnese, formed an anti-Spartan alliance with support from Athens. This led to the Battle of Mantinea in 418 BC, one of the largest land battles of the war. Another dark episode followed in 416 BC, when Athens attacked the neutral island of Melos. The Melians refused to submit to Athens or join its empire. After a siege, Athens captured the island, executed the adult men, and sold the women and children into slavery. This event showed how harsh and imperial Athens had become during the war. It also revealed the moral decline caused by years of conflict, where power increasingly mattered more than justice. The next major phase was the Sicilian expedition, one of the greatest disasters in Athenian history. In 415 BC, Athens decided to send a massive fleet to Sicily, officially to help an ally against Syracuse. But many Athenians dreamed of conquering the whole island and gaining enormous wealth and resources. The expedition was encouraged by Alcibiades, a brilliant but controversial Athenian politician and general. Shortly before the expedition departed, sacred statues in Athens were mutilated, and Alcibiades was accused of religious crimes. He was allowed to sail, but later recalled for trial. Instead of returning to Athens, he defected to Sparta. This betrayal was catastrophic. Alcibiades advised the Spartans on how to hurt Athens most effectively. Meanwhile, the Athenian expedition in Sicily became slow and indecisive under Nicias, who lacked the boldness needed for such a risky campaign. Syracuse had time to prepare and request help from Sparta. Sparta sent the general Gylippus, who organized the Syracusan defense and turned the tide against Athens. Athens sent reinforcements under Demosthenes, but even this failed to save the expedition. The Athenians eventually attempted to retreat, but bad timing, hesitation, and a lunar eclipse delayed their withdrawal. They were defeated in the great harbor of Syracuse, and their army was forced to retreat inland. Syracusan cavalry harassed them constantly. In the end, the Athenian force was surrounded and destroyed. Nicias and Demosthenes were executed, and thousands of Athenian soldiers were killed or enslaved. The Sicilian expedition destroyed much of Athens' navy and manpower, leaving the empire dangerously weakened. After this disaster, Sparta renewed the war with greater determination. This final phase is often called the Decelean War or Ionian War. Following Alcibiades' advice, the Spartans fortified Decelia in Attica, allowing them to maintain a permanent threat near Athens. This prevented Athenians from using much of their countryside and disrupted the silver mines at Laurium, one of Athens' major sources of wealth. Athens now had to rely even more heavily on sea routes and tribute from its allies. At the same time, Persia entered the conflict. The Persian Empire saw an opportunity to recover influence over the Greek cities of Asia Minor, many of which had been under Athenian protection. Persian satraps began funding Sparta, especially its navy. This changed the balance of the war. Athens had long depended on naval superiority, but Persian money allowed Sparta to build a fleet capable of challenging Athenian control of the sea. Even after the Sicilian disaster, Athens showed remarkable resilience. Many of its allies revolted, its treasury was nearly empty, and its young men had been lost in Sicily, yet the city continued fighting. The Athenian fleet based at Samos refused to accept an oligarchic coup in Athens and remained loyal to the democratic cause. Alcibiades, despite his earlier betrayal, returned to influence and helped Athens win victories, including at Cyzicus in 410 BC. For a time, Athens seemed to recover its naval strength and regain parts of its empire. But this recovery did not last. Sparta eventually found a highly capable naval commander in Lysander. Unlike many Spartan leaders, Lysander understood naval warfare, diplomacy, and Persian politics. He developed a close relationship with Cyrus the Younger, the son of the Persian king Darius II. Cyrus provided money and support, allowing Lysander to strengthen the Spartan fleet and pay rowers more reliably than Athens could. Athens won one final major naval victory at Arginusae in 406 BC, but the aftermath was disastrous. Because of a storm, the Athenian commanders failed to rescue survivors from damaged ships. Public anger in Athens led to a controversial trial, and several successful generals were executed. This weakened Athenian leadership at the worst possible moment. The decisive defeat came in 405 BC at Aegospotami near the Hellespont, the route through which Athens received much of its grain. Lysander caught the Athenian fleet unprepared and destroyed almost all of it. Only a few ships escaped. Without its navy, Athens could no longer protect its empire or feed its population. Sparta blockaded the city, and starvation forced Athens to surrender in 404 BC. The terms of surrender were severe. Athens had to tear down its long walls, give up its fleet, abandon its empire, and accept Spartan leadership. Some Spartan allies, especially Corinth and Thebes, wanted Athens destroyed completely and its people enslaved. Sparta refused, partly because Athens had once helped defend Greece against Persia. Instead, Athens was placed under Spartan control. After the war, Sparta installed an oligarchic regime in Athens known as the 30 Tyrants. Their rule was harsh and violent, but it did not last long. In 403 BC, Athenian democrats led by Thrasybulus overthrew the oligarchs and restored democracy. Athens gradually recovered its independence, though it never regained the same imperial power it had held before the war. The Peloponnesian War changed Greece forever. Athens lost its empire, its naval dominance, and much of its wealth. Sparta became the leading power in Greece, but its hegemony was short-lived. Sparta was good at winning wars, but less effective at managing an empire. Its harsh policies created resentment, and within a few decades it was defeated by Thebes at the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC. The war also weakened the Greek world as a whole. Cities were destroyed, populations were displaced, and old moral limits in warfare were broken. Greek warfare had once been more limited and seasonal, but the Peloponnesian War became a long, ideological, and destructive struggle. Democratic Athens and oligarchic Sparta represented competing political systems, and their rivalry pulled much of Greece into conflict. In the long term, the war helped prepare the way for foreign domination. The Greek city-states exhausted themselves through decades of fighting, and their divisions made them vulnerable. Persia regained influence in the eastern Aegean, and later, Macedon rose under Philip II and Alexander the Great. By weakening both Athens and Sparta, the Peloponnesian War marked the end of the classical Greek Golden Age and opened the path toward a new political order in the ancient Mediterranean.